Okay, today I will not talk about the novel phase of materials, but I will talk about novel people and the story behind my research, the story that enabled me to do my research. And the title will be clear. Now it looks like a Big Bang Theory episode name, I know, but it will be clear later. So I will explain you a phase transition. So we will go from one place, actually one time, to the another, but we will in the same place, the same map. We will remain in the Anatolia. So I will explain the status of science, the status of scientists in the Ottoman Empire first. So unfortunately, after the Renaissance, Ottoman Empire missed the progress of positive science, and especially the Newtonian revolution. So especially we missed the New World. And a good example of that is the first textbook of physics was published in 1885. And it was just dealing with the classical mechanics, and Europeans, after 15 years, was going to start the quantum revolution. And I will show you two more examples. The left one is from my library, and I was ashamed when I looked at this one. So this is one of the textbooks of chemistry, and its name is Kimya-i Tıbbi, which means medical chemistry. So even if you're not a specialist, you can notice the two mistakes. So su is water in Turkish, but it's written as H2O2, even though it is H2O, and this is a knowledge that has been known for a long time at the time. And if you look at this equation, like a chemical reaction, you see that the two mercury atoms are entering, one is just leaving. So I mean, two apparent mistakes on a single sheet of paper, and this should be, very obvious at that time. And on the right, this is the first published geology book in the history of Ottoman Empire, and it's actually a translation, not an original work. And this was also a translation, by the way, I should mention. And it's not translated by a scientist or a geologist, but it's translated by a poet, and it doesn't even mention the original one. So, and the academicians work on it, I mean, try to find the original, then they found out that the original is actually French, and then translated to Arabic, and then from Arabic it's translated to Turkish. And they found out that it's not an academic book, and it's like a popular science, pop geology book at that time. So, let's go on about the status. So, not only we missed the progress of science, we also, the Ottoman Empire adopted the printing press much later than Europeans did. So Gutenberg is the inventor of the printing press, and Müteferrika is the person who brought the Ottoman Empire, and there is like a 300 years of gap. And also there was no Academy of Science in where ideas could be discussed. And also the scientists were persecuted harshly. And Pires is a famous geographer who prepared one of the most accurate world maps at that time, was beheaded. And Hazarfen made a gadget to fly across the Bosphorus, and he was sent to exile. And Taqiyuddin is an astronomer and a mathematician. And his story is even more tragic, and I will tell that. Yeah. So this is a miniature. It's like an Ottoman painting in an Ottoman style, and it's from the original book. And it shows the observatory of Constantinople. So it is the Istanbul Observatory, and it's founded by Taqiyuddin in 1577, and it was the biggest observatory at that time when it was founded. It was even bigger than its contemporary in Denmark, the observatory of Tycho Brahe, from which Kepler and Newton took data, and actually founded the modern science based on that data. But what happened after the foundation of this observatory? So a famine happened in Istanbul, and some people persuaded the Sultan, the emperor, that the famine is happening because these people are observing the heavens and looking at the sky. And the Sultan believed their stories because he was too ignorant, and they demolished that observatory with the cannonballs from the Bosphorus, and all of the progress on all of the records were gone. And I should also mention that Ottoman Empire was unaware of its archaeological treasures. So it occupied a vast land, as you see in the first slide. But the Ottoman Empire was unaware of what was going on beneath the soil. So Egypt, like the Rosetta Stone, was in Ottoman lands. Troy was in Ottoman lands. Petra in Jerusalem, Jordan, was in Ottoman lands, but they were all excavated by Europeans and taken back to Europe. And literacy rate was shamingly low, like 9%, and for female it's like less than 0.5%. And this is like 1897, so I mean, before it was even lower. So if you look at this status, you're not surprised that there are not many prominent scientists at that time. And I will give you a positive example. I always focused on the ones that are negative, but I know that there is an important mathematician at that time whom I should mention. So, Hüseyin Tevfik Pasha is a mathematician and has a book called Linear Algebra. And I knew from some people that this book was actually sent to Harvard. And I went to Houghton Library and found this book. And took a scan of its frontispiece and the cover, and you're seeing that. So, if you're having trouble to read it, I will... Okay. So, Hüseyin Tevfik Pasha, Pasha means a general or like a prime minister at that time. And he was a well-educated mathematician, proficient in many languages and mathematics. And sent his book to the Harvard College Library, and I forward you today by mail a copy of my work on linear algebra. Very respectfully yours, Hüseyin Tevfik. And so there was at that time exchange of scientific work, and I learned from my fellow mathematicians that this work is not a translation but a creative work. But this positive example doesn't change the whole picture. So Ottoman Empire missed the science of its time, and it could and even couldn't translate the works that are done by other people, let alone creating them. Now the transition part comes. I mean, we were in such a place at that time, and the status of science was extremely bad. Now I will tell you another story, and the story that enabled me to come to Harvard. So, when the Turkish Empire, the modern Turkish Republic was founded, several reforms were made. New curriculum was adopted, and it was secular and centralized. And co-education and equal rights for women brought in 1926. And if you look at the dates of the other dates of the several Harvard colleges, it was even before than most of the Harvard colleges. So modern Turkish Empire was, the Republic was in front of its era. So in this picture you see a chemical laboratory in which women were doing their experiments, and it was the time of the modern Turkish Republic. And also a modern higher education institute and academy was founded, and it was called the Istanbul University, and it was founded in 1933. And many prominent scientists called to that institute, and they rooted their disciplines there. And also village institutes and community schools were opened in villages in Turkey. And they taught science, how to read, how to play instruments in villages to rural people. And they increased the literacy rate by a landslide. And in this picture you see people from village institute. So this is one from village institute, this is from the community schools. So rural people who were not able to read and write now are playing violins. And here you see women together with men in a school, and they knew, they learned how to write in Latin alphabet, and they're in a classroom. So you are getting the transition, right? Also, I can talk about this issue like for a day, but I will not. So, Turkish Republic collected scientists from Nazis, and especially from Europe, and especially from Nazis. And there were a lot of prominent people among them. For instance, Hans Reichenbach, the philosopher, came to Istanbul University. Kantarovich, a prominent gynecologist. Liebman, now a Caltech professor. His son is now a Caltech professor. Came to Turkey. And I am going to show you a letter sent to Turkish Republic by a smart scientist, saying that there are lots of important scientists who cannot do their jobs in Germany, but he knows that the Turkish Republic can protect them because they were doing these educational reforms and paying, respect to their work. And this fellow was Albert Einstein. And this is the original letter sent by Albert Einstein to the Turkish Ministry of Education. But since I don't have time, I will not read it in detail. And I will show you the result. So I first explained the status of science in Ottoman Empire and said that if somebody says that there are no prominent scientists in Ottoman Empire, you will not be surprised. And after seeing this transition, you will still not be surprised if you see these important people. And Aziz Sancar is a Nobel Prize chemist. Erdal İnönü got a Wigner Medal, the highest honor in theoretical physics. Oktay Sinanoğlu became the youngest professor in the history of Yale. He's a theoretical chemist. And I had the privilege of meeting these people, except for Erdal İnönü, because he was too old for me. And I learned from their experiences, and all of them were paying homage to the modern Turkish educational system. And this example is even special, is even more special for me, because this guy is a physicist, my colleague, and is not only from my hometown, but also from my village. And I know these people, I know his family, I know their home, and this guy was sent to United Kingdom in 1945, and he became a theoretical physicist and went to United States afterwards and founded the Theoretical Physics Institute in Miami. And in this picture, you see who this guy is and who the other guy is. and these are the third generation scientists, and they're even more, they are special for me because with these people I had the privilege to work with and make close contacts. I had my internships in their group, and they were all expressing their respect to the Turkish Republic and the educational reforms, and to the man who was the mastermind of them. So Feryal Özel, a NASA scientist and professor of cosmology, says that if I get an excellent education as a Turkish woman and was able to become what I desired, it is due to that man. And I will explain who that man was. And not only in positive sciences, but also in social sciences, there were lots of prominent people. And Celal Şengör is a geologist and by far the smartest man I have ever met. And he got the Nobel Prize in geology, like the Nobel Prize in geology, and helped me to contact with people at Harvard, and even called some people in this building and in the Ernst Mayr Library and to advise me. And Fuat Sezgin is an art historian located in Frankfurt, but passed away last month or 2 months ago. And he had also great impact in my life because he advised me to study history of science, because he advised that you could find some nice connections between your research and in the history. And Halil İnalcık is the founder of the history department at the University of Chicago. And Ekrem Akurgal is an important archaeologist as well. All of these people know more than 6 languages. I mean, they're at the top of their field, the most elite people in their field. And so, again, you're not surprised to seeing that these people, because I mean, the education reforms, the university education, the academy was all meant to prepare these people. And that man, of course, the mastermind of them was Ozturk. And he made a phase transition and like took a country and pushed it forward like 200 years, 300 years. And I will conclude with the statement that if various people could cross the borders and serve to humanity through arts and science and could tell their stories, it's because someone, the Atatürk, has overcome much larger obstacles before. And so, as a Turkish scientist, I would say that I stand on the shoulders of Atatürk, and I feel myself as the fourth generation of these people, and I should pay my debt of gratitude to Atatürk. So thank you.